Well, today is module 2. Yesterday, Father Bruno said that this workshop is part of a composition of puzzles. Each day there is a tile that help us understanding where we are, what we do, and how we can improve. Because the reason why we are here is to improve not only ourselves, but for the benefit of the organization as a whole. Okay. So, as a sort of short recap, just to link the pieces. Yesterday we started with that exercise of the organization chart of Stella Maris, and we understood, as it happens everywhere, that our knowledge of the complex structure, hierarchical structure of Stella Maris is not very well known. Okay, so we clarified. Okay, normal. This is why we did this exercise, because it can't be improvement without ownership and membership. Okay, only if we sense that we belong to something, and we know the mechanism of the organization in which we work and we operate, we can, let's say, feel compelled to offer our point of view, to share our methodologies, our thoughts, in order to improve it. Because if we are lost, and if we are fragmented, most probably we will retire ourselves in our ecological niche, let's say. We will continue to do our job, but not investing much in the improvement of the organization in itself. This is a very important concept, and it goes together with the top left and the weaknesses. We already discussed this yesterday. You see, it's very clear how some elements that for you are elements of strength, at the same time for you are elements of weakness, meaning that you are perfectly aware of the potentiality, okay, that for instance networking is bringing to our work, the need to be supported by the bishops and the clergy in general, the important and strategic role of volunteers, etc. And at the same time, you identified that, although important, those elements should be reinforced, they are in need to be, improved, together with others that stays alone, and they are okay, basically. They need to be, of course, worked out. But this, that is the core for what is the job on the ground, on the field. There are some that you identified as opportunities, because we perfectly know that if we work on this, we can improve through the sharing of best practices. This sharing will increase the willingness to improve and learn. The channeling financial assistance, and John is here for this, and the opportunity to strengthen the collaboration with the local government, private agencies, etc., and the development of social media in order to reinforce that element of strength that is the recognition of Stella Maris in the maritime world. Some others, you as a group, you identified as a threat, because this especially you identified that there is a problem, because chaplains are appointed, but who knows for how long, the boundary of their involvement is not very clear, and this goes, of course, with the problem of the structure. There is a clear responsibility on those that they don't belong to you. This responsibility rests on those who are on top of the structure, and they have to help the rest, the components of this Stella structure to help you at the end of the day. You are at the end of the chain of command, and you have to be, you must rely on someone that is driving you through clear guidance and clear path, okay, for what you are doing. It remains as a main threat for you is this, okay? For you, for all of us, because whenever we are working, and we are working extensively, we are investing our time and energy, but around the environment is not very favorable. At the end of the day, we risk to fail in this. That is a real amazing trap.
I think that's not been so explicit in the previous session, previous things we've done here. But it's something we see as a real risk, isn't it? But it's not been explicitly described in previous workshops. So, not being part of the conversation yesterday, how critical is that risk? How much of an immediate threat to your mission is burnout, or is it a threat on the horizon you can foresee, or is it a present one that's affecting you now?
With regards to the aging, I think that comes from us from Japan, but we did not answer burnout. So I think the
May I ask you? Sorry. When you are talking, please remove the mask, because otherwise we don't understand.
Yeah. Okay. The one that talks about aging came from us from Japan. We know that most of our volunteers are elderlies. Retirees. So I think since your question is about burnout and how it affects the work, the risk of the work, I think the group who answered burnout could maybe expound your answer why. With this.
So the question of John's question is, since in this group explicitly came out the issue of burnout, okay? Because in the previous trainings, no, it was not perceived as a threat to the job. Okay, so John is asking, since yesterday we weren't here, we discussed a bit about the story of heart to serve, no, and by serving but not being supported by the structure or by the results, you can go into this state of mind, let's say, physical state of pain. So John is asking, do you perceive it as a real threat that is there, or it is in the future? Each organization has a structure, all, otherwise it's anarchy. Yesterday, what we saw, when we are talking now, we are orbiting around the role of bishops, and it's true, because they are the one who are your the boss. Okay, on top of you there is the bishop, and there is the regional coordinator, national director, whatever. I mean, but it's in reality, it's the bishop that is the key figures. But what we discussed yesterday when Bruno presented the motu proprio. The mission and vision is not so clear. It's blurred. What does it mean? It means that, okay, it is correct. Bishops are ignorant. But ignorant means that someone that doesn't know. Not that he's stupid. Someone that doesn't know. And what is interesting here, and then we move on, is the story of burnout. Because the story of burnout is not stress. Burnout is a sort of disease, okay, that attack the carers, those who are helping the others. Okay? Burnout is that one. Is related to the fatigue of helping the others. Otherwise, if I drive 12 hours, I'm anxious, stressed at the end, etc. I'm not in burnout. Burnout is when I receive all the pain and the sorrow and the fatigue of the others, and I don't know where to put, and I need a place where to discharge this extra. But this is the core point. Yesterday what we said, the maritime world has changed. The needs of the seafarers and fishers are changed. But the top of the structure of Stella Maris remained with the idea that your job is to go and pray and bless and give the Eucharist, do the baptism, marriage, etc. It's not. Your job has become much more complicated, but they don't know. And the role of these meetings is exactly to collect all this information and to bring, because the change, as I said yesterday, and I truly believe, is bottom up. You can't expect any change top down, because they will not, unless you are bringing the issues to them to take in account what you are experiencing. Okay? Move on, but move on. We don't change. We just move the focus. We keep this discussion. We move the focus, because this morning we move the focus on the beneficiaries, and their needs. Okay. The session again. What is important is how this group, and as a methodological point, whatever comes out is the patrimony of this group. Okay, it doesn't matter if it pop up from one discussion, one table, or the other. It becomes immediately patrimony of the whole group. Okay, this is the powerful of these meetings. Okay, so again, this morning we do two things. We share and challenge our way to see the beneficiaries, because again, we have our preconception, we have our prejudices sometimes, okay, and we want to discuss a bit about it. And then, of course, to expand their features and needs as a regional group. We will do this in 3 sessions. One, there is a creative work, let's say, the first one. Then there will be a technical one, there is an hour matrix. And at the end, another discussion, group discussion about common and common. Okay? We have, remember the agenda, more or less 3 hours, right? Okay. So, plenty of time. Just to start, now I show you a picture. I give you 5 seconds. You look at the picture on the screen. And then I will ask you something. Okay? but 5 seconds. Then I remove. Okay? The question is, who saw the old madam? Raise the hand. I don't see. Who saw only the young lady? Wow. I saw both. I'm impressed. Who saw both? So you raise the hands because it constantly up and down. But both? 2, 3. Simple. For those who didn't see both, this is the young, and this is the old, the mouth, the nose, the nose, etc. Stupid entry. How do you say? Jonglage. But this explains what we see. Okay? It's normal. Okay? There are those who are attracted by some components, and these components are related to our experience. And this, our experience is impossible to untangle because everything is together. It's a matter of how do we see the culture we have, the attention we pay for some components, etc., etc. And sometimes when we are working with people, our attention is distorted, can be distorted, okay? Because we are following what we are interested in instead of what the others are bringing to us. Sometimes we tend to eliminate the parts that are very discomfort for us, that create discomfort for us, or we don't know what to do. So we are removing, okay? So, and this is attached to what we discussed before. The more we are tired, the more you are oppressed by our job, because no one is superhuman, unfortunately. And in my experience, the religious people are the more affected by burnout and the less protected against the burnout, exactly because they're hard to serve, not to give unconditionally. Okay? And at the end, bam, it arrives the heat and they are destroyed. Okay? We don't want to be destroyed. No? We want to have energy to work. So the first session, the first work is we divided again 3 groups. I think it's enough, but we changed the groups because we have to mix up better than yesterday. And it's very simple and easy. Each group discuss their experience with their beneficiaries. I call them beneficiaries. You can call it clients or whatever. I mean, but beneficiaries, I think it's okay. And then you make a draw, a portrait of this beneficiary, putting together all the elements that you discussed that are important for you. Okay, it's not important that is the quality. Okay, of the. We don't need to reach the skills of Van Gogh, for sure. Okay. The most important thing is that this portrait, from this one, I invite one of the artists who comes and to let us know. Artist. We have to do it. I have not presented yet. So reserve the clappings. So what you can see here is works very clearly.
Very clearly you see the basket of fruits, which is normally best symbolized in the Philippine church whenever they celebrate Mass. It's always offered with a basket of fruits. And most of those baskets were offered by the families of seafarers. And the fruits represent, of course, the image of the seafarers that are, of course, upper class. So with they are considered having beautiful houses, cars, investments. But all the things beautiful that is considered positive in terms of material wealth are always represented with this offering to the altar. Behind that, of course, are outside the baskets, these are material. And they represent again the negative life of the seafarers and the fishers. No? So if you talk about the beautiful things, sometimes most neglected are really about those outside the baskets. They are poor because majority of our seafarers are ratings, and many of the ratings are unable to access also good jobs. So they don't have beautiful house, they don't have beautiful cars. Their families are also suffering. For instance, particularly for the fishers, they are residing along the shores and the shanty houses, and yet we know that the fishers are the ones catching the fish and providing it for the consumptions of everyone. And then we have also discussed that recently, because of the abuses of environment, such as quarrying of black sand, drives away the fishes to the deeper grounds, and brings about difficulty for the fishers to catch fish because they have to move to faraway places that if before it would take them on days to catch fish. Now probably they need weeks in order to harvest the most appreciated seafood. And many people don't understand it. So as I have said, that the basket is always the one that attracts us all. But there are so many things that maybe some of you had already discussed. The loneliness of the insecurities in terms of jobs, families, children. But they also have that spiritual aspect, a very, very strong spiritual reliance in terms of reliance on God. Because when they move out into the sea, they don't know whether they can come back. Particularly during typhoon season here in the Philippines. But it's not, of course, just applying in the Philippines. They are abused as well by the companies, the employers, the agencies. There's also the competition among themselves. Keeping up with the Joneses. What's the most beautiful fruits? If you have a car, then you have to buy another car. The undocumented. There's a lot of bullying as well happening in the ship. This is also being applied also to, according to the, even as priests we are being bullied by our bishops by by giving us so many tasks that we cannot complain. If the captain would bully his own cruise, then sometimes our bishop would bully us. By providing us more tasks.
To establish a toll-free number
Yes.
to call for the uses of the bishop.
Yes. Of course, we're also talking about the undocumented. They're recruited even in the outside the country. When they go out fishing, there in the shore, outside the shore, they're already being recruited. So those are the children. There is also a lot of competition among children, just not only their families. So yeah, there's so much vulnerability fishers, especially in their families. So I think did I deliver what we have discussed in the group? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Very well done. This group, please. The floor is yours.
Well, so we have to see. Okay, our group talk about our beneficiaries. Firstly, please understanding, so I'm Korean. English is not my mother tongue, so also, also I just appointed as Stella chaplain last year. So all in terms of some words about regarding sea and seafarers is not yet familiar for me. So misunderstandings or miscommunication, please understand. Firstly, we talk about beneficiaries. Our group talk about beneficiaries about economically to support family or seafarers, and also some of our group mentioned about spiritually beneficiaries there, prayer, our support, heart to heart. So we thought about in two ways. Maybe economically beneficiaries, maybe exactly seafarers and fishers and agent, or maybe community, or maybe government and the taxes around community back. Also, when we think about spiritually more wider. When we support seafarers and fishers, and they will recognize they are not lonely. They are not doing without people's appreciation. And they think to realize, we are doing great job. People need our efforts, our labor, work. So when they big cargo here and little fishermen's there, and all work. This is a fish market, and their families maybe go to the church, the family, and all these things influence all people around the world. If at least of your brothers and sisters you're doing with Jesus. So if somebody in cargo big ship, somebody have a mental illness or very lonely, if some chaplains and sisters and volunteers support and just listening or supporting anyway, the big baskets about fruit, if they're happy, family is happy and community is happy, chaplains are happy, and God will happy. Everyone in the world will happy. So beneficiaries for everyone is our point. Thank you.
Where are you going? What is this?
Dead hands.
You forgot to mention that.
Dead hands. Actually, when we drawing chaplains, Stella Mary's hands, but actually God's hands, maybe.
Hug.
Embrace everyone.
Embrace everybody.
Nobody get excluded.
Embrace.
Good morning, everyone. Our group is group 2, and we actually talk about the human person. The human person who has head, heart, hands, body. Where's the body? Who happens to be a seafarer, a fisher, the families left behind, or even students of maritime institutes, and the port workers, the port personnel. So it consists the people of the sea. This human person has to work to, of course, provide maybe material well-being, economic well-being for their families. But the reality is, in this profession, we see two faces. So, this person, of course, I was not the one who doing this.
Don't assume responsibility.
So, we identify this side as a happy person. Happy. And then the other side is sad. He's crying. But the same person, he has the heart, he has the hands, and he would like to serve his entire family, his family. That is his aim in working as a fisher or as a seafarer. But it's so sad that the reality is the person has two sides. One is happy and one is sad. Happy in the sense that, again, seafarers, especially those who are officers, have, of course, money to fulfill also the desires, the dreams of their families. But at the same time, there are also seafarers who happen to have the money, but in their journey as family, they're not able to give a holistic life of their family. So, yes, he responded the material needs of the family, but it's not enough. There's other needs to be responded to. So, there is cost really. No, there is cost really, especially the seafarer being away from home. Because material possession also would lead to, according to one of our group members, would lead to relational problem. No? Relational problem in the sense that the seafarer would send money to his allotee, and then the wife, for example, as allotee, would not manage well the financial resources. So, the sad thing of the life of the seafarer, the life of the family of seafarers. So, it's so sad. But the other side also, happy. So, even seafarers who happen to be just ratings, so with low income, but they're able also to provide well their families, the education to children, the other needs of the family. So because he has managed their resources, his resources well, of course, together with his entire family. So there's financial management, financial education, financial management on the part of this family. So other human person represented here is the fisher, for example. Happy, at the same time, sad. So, happy in the sense that, of course, they're able to provide life, economic well-being of the family, but at the same time, the sad thing is the living condition also, especially on board, according to one of our sharer. So, the living condition and the abuses on board that they have experienced. So that is what we see in this drawing, the human person. The sea who happens to be a seaman, a fisher, or entirely the whole people of the sea. That's it. Thank you.
Amazingly enough, 3 groups, 3 concepts, completely different. This one, I have to say that it's very catchy. The 3 of them are catchy, but catchy because here there is an allegory, the metaphor. There is the basket with the fruits, something that is that the beneficiary are bringing to you. So it's a fruit full of symbols. It's symbolic. Okay? And the way that this group decided to picture, to portray the 2 sides of the coin. There is the positive, there is the negative. In a way, that is the allegory means that there is a detachment, and the basket is the link in between the chaplains and the beneficiaries, but the idea of what the element of vulnerability, fragility that you described before are represented to this separation between the colored part and the blurred image. Okay? A choice. Okay? Not to portray in any sense faces. Okay? It's a good, I think it's a good way to escape that trap. Okay? This group, opposite, they decided to engage, trying to picture someone. Concept is the same, more or less. Okay? There is instead of horizontal, is vertical. Okay? But still, there are 2 faces of the same coin. And as it was explained, it's very interesting because it's not a matter of who is successful or not. Okay? All, you could say all of us, okay? We have this element of comfort, discomfort, joy, and sadness, depending on the situation, on the circumstances, not exactly linked to something social, let's say, social status, etc. Because even the rich can experience moments of difficulty and solitude, and with this, that is the link with the family. This one is completely different. They broke the similarities, the line. Okay? And in a way, why is different this one? Not because of the elements it contains, but for the importance that this group gave to their work. Something that here is less, here is not at all. Here is represented by this, and Stella Maris is here with this basket. Here there is no, so there is a pure gaze of pure consideration of the beneficiary. Here you mingled a bit. There is the production chain that is here, But
Embrace.
what is relevant is this part
Embrace.
and the church. That is okay. You put it in the bottom right and not in the center, but still is an element that if you consider the how do you say the perspective, here this is the biggest element, is the church. Okay. Means nothing, of course, because it's in half an hour. It's difficult to do something better, but it speaks. Okay. For instance, it speaks as for me, just food for thoughts. That you see yourself very, very involved in this. You put yourself as a protagonist in the story in the maritime industry, while the others are trying to consider only the beneficiaries detached a bit from us. Okay, but detached in the good sense, not in the bad sense. Not detached that they are far and we don't care. No, detached is say, let me differentiate what I am and what they are. That is very healthy, this way to keep, because again, if we want to talk about burnout again, in order to counteract burnout, you have to be empathic. And to be empathic means to find that distance in between us and them, and never mix up the two. This is when we engage too much, because we are overlapping with them, we are not helping a lot. Anyway, three different, and exactly it mirrors the beginning of that picture. Someone has the more tendency to consider themselves involved, some other to use a metaphor, an allegory, in order to represent the world, and some others going straight to the point I would say, not having troubles in challenging themselves, because this is the most challenge. The three, not the most beautiful, not the most intellectually and let's say refined, but this one is. This is the reality that I see, and I'm not ashamed, and I'm not afraid to try to represent. We are here just to understand the different way to consider the issue. I mean, what John was saying is interesting in a way, and he's right somehow. I mean, there is the way to consider your beneficiary as a part of a holistic, wider world, broader world, okay, in which also us, even me, are benefiting. Okay? And we know, okay? Somehow it's first of all it's a bit put a big responsibility, no? But it's not this is the problem. The problem is I don't know if I managed to go. Here we are trying to focus because your job is to take care of these people, okay? And through them we know. Because of course it's always like that, I mean, if I take care of my son and I teach him to be good with the others, also the others will benefit, and he will benefit, his family will benefit, we all benefit, okay? But it's different if I take responsibility with one person and if I take responsibility of the world. My approach is different. I'm not sure to be able to tell you, because it's very when you choose the allegory and the representation of the world and the beneficiary and all who are benefiting, you are putting yourself in a more safer position, let's say. Okay? That is different when you engage with the real trouble and sufferings of the person. When you see that. This is a bit of protection, but it's good. Please, nothing of this is judgmental. It's just to reflect on the different perspective. Okay? This is a bit, I justify myself, and I need to justify myself for what I'm doing. That is good. Okay? But somehow I need to justify with the bigger scheme. You understand? Why? If I focus only on the person that is in front of me, I forget the world, and I'm concentrating only and only on that person. In the helping relationship, we'll talk tomorrow a bit. Okay. In the helping relationship, there is when we help, as I said before, when we help someone, we help the world. It's a metaphor, but it is like that. Okay. But when we are in a relationship, in a helping relationship with someone, we need to see him or her, not the world. The world, we don't care. We are there for that person. We don't cover ourselves with our motivation or with other. That is very spiritual and very religious. And I understand this point. This is interesting. And this is why we use as allegory something that is region-wise. If you ask me, in Italy, we don't bring neither the bones of the fish, the church. Who cares? We say there is the Vatican. They are so rich. Go there. So, and the element of spirituality is there. It's important, and we don't have to forget. Okay? And in this discussion, there is what Victor I told you to wait yesterday for this afternoon. There is the contradiction. The current contradiction of being a poor chaplain today. The contradiction is, am I serving the individual, or I am serving a purpose? That is a big contradiction, because the distance in between the two is what gives the distance in between the social worker and the pastor, let's say. It's very thin. We are walking on a very thin line, because the risk is to fall on one side or on the other, and it's not beneficial. Either if you embrace only the spiritual part, or if you embrace only the sufferance from the material sufferance, the abuses, the particularity of your job is to stay exactly in the middle and to find a way to mingle in between the two, and to be like an equilibrist, you know, with like this on the rope. Okay? Because whatever if you fell on one side or the other side, you are not doing the good for neither. So this discussion is very important. I'm important the religious symbol. At the same time, I'm important the attention to the person. But here we have to decide which side we are on. But to this afternoon, we will discuss further about this issue. Now we go on, unless someone else wants to comment or to provide more input. It's okay?
So may I say something? That is really the thing that we have to put in our mind that as priests and chaplain as we are, we have to be dualistic in the sense that we have to work for the spiritual side of the person. At the same time, we have to work for the physical side of the person. We have to be dualistic and we have to be the middle, that both sides are being served.
Not easy, eh? Not an easy task. So, Papa. Okay, next step. Before, in order to produce these pieces of art, you discussed about the element of vulnerability and fragility. I'm trying to picture. Now we do the next step. We put it in a matrix, but we turn from the element of fragility and vulnerability to needs. Needs that must be met and fulfilled. Okay? Concrete needs. No, we are getting out the metaphors, allegory, representation, etc., and we put the discussion that you had before in concrete. Okay? So, for instance, you have the list of the factors that are positive, negative factors, etc. Translate that list in needs of your beneficiaries. Okay? And then when you have the needs, you make me a favor and you put in this matrix. Where here you put the needs that you consider important and urgent. Here, those who are urgent but not important, and here, those who are not urgent but very important. Try to do this exercise. Then we put and we discuss. But there is something that I'm very, very, very satisfied. So, as usual, but let's change. Let's start from this group. That you could hear the noise of the mechanism of the brain squeezing the neurons. So.
So, the first report that we presented this morning, we focused on the reality, really, no? The reality of our beneficiaries. So, in our report now, we have this urgent and important, but there are things which are important but maybe not urgent, but they are still important. So our report here is the following. The needs for financial planning or financial education, because our seafarers have been, of course, receiving money, no, dollars, and then oftentimes they are not literate, especially in managing their financial resources. So that's why we're able to see the need for financial planning and education. They spend money to things that are not really necessary. So secondly is, of course, like for example, I shared this right now, this during the sharing. My staff right now is in the place, is in the town, 100 kilometers from the city, to visit the wake of a seaman, a 29-year-old seafarer who disembarked 10 days before he committed suicide. So 10 days before he committed suicide, last August 21. He disembarked last August 10, I think. So, but according to the police report, there was the reason of committing suicide was severe depression. But the families could not accept that result, of course, in the absence of medical findings, because they had not found this seaman with problems. He's single, he's happy, and there's no indication, there's no symptom of any severe depression. So that's why we're able to see also the importance of mental health or psycho-spiritual needs of our seafarers and even fishers. And of course, every now and then, seafarers would come to us, ask for legal advice, legal counseling. So we're able to see that the seafarers should read at least the contract, for example, their legal rights as seafarers and fishers, their labor rights. So in order to know their rights. And of course, they belong to a family and they are separated from each other. So the cost of migration, they are separated from each other, and then there are problems that would surface. So, like for example, problems on marital problems, marital, how do you call that? So the seafarer, because he has money, so could also be tempted. I'm not sure if he would become a womanizer, for example, and then the wife also becomes manizer.
So they become hybrid. As a process of hybridization.
So that's why it's important we're able to see that there is the need for marital enrichment or marriage enrichment for the couple. And parenting seminars also, parenting needs, because the communication gap between, because they are away from home, so at least we're happy that nowadays we have this technology. They can easily communicate with each other. But of course the reality is there, the absence of one of the family, especially the head of the family, so the father. So that's why we're able to see the need for parenting or marriage enrichment seminar for their families. So other things very important for us, but not necessarily urgent. The families also, the seafarers, should have a network. So should get involved themselves in organizations, so that if they have networks, so whatever assistance they might need, they could easily be answered. So because they have networks, so they can have access to whatever helps they are needing. And then at the same time, yeah, constant communication to the children. So seafarers, many seafarers, they are fathers, and they are in reality absentee fathers, physically at least, physically. But with the technology right now, so they can communicate. So what is important is they have constant communication to their children. So we see it as a need, because there are plenty of fathers who are considering themselves just as material provider for their children. Material provider. So what about the other needs of the children? So that's why they need to show their fatherly presence, no, to their children, even just virtually. And then, of course, the seafarers who receive money, so sometimes they don't have investment. So it is important also, since they are contractual, their job is contractual, so they need to have some alternative livelihood, no, program for themselves and for their own families. So far, that's what we come up. Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated, because very concise. Of course, here we are talking about needs, or we are not talking about actions, because for each needs can be split in several activities, okay, to meet the needs, just for clarification.
Is group?
Earlier, we are the group with the hand embracing.
Okay.
It can be understood as the Stella. It can be understood as the chaplain, or the sisters, the lay workers, encompassing all the work for the seafarers. And so, urgent and important. I think every time that we have the opportunity to be of help, that's always urgent and important. But we have to single out some of the things that we already do in our apostolates. So first, we have to provide them with the sacraments, pastoral care, in any way we can. In times of disaster, in times of sickness, they come to the center, they come to us and ask for help. In case they lost their jobs or their contract ends and they cannot find another job, so they come to us, and then we find link to contact other government agencies where they can be helped. And then it was already mentioned by Brother John, cases of marital problems and issues. And so what will be our intervention? Usually counseling. We try to reconcile them if we can, but sometimes it's in vain sometimes. And then problems with their employers and agencies. So usually the center or the sisters or the lay, they also try to link it to other government agencies that can help them. And then in times of death, of course, even in the parishes, if our workers experience loss of a loved one, we always intervene.
So in the case of seafarers, because we are also into seafarers, it's the same thing. This
May I ask you why you say assistance to families? Assistance in
families, because usually we are always in contact with the families who are left behind. And it was the families who usually come to us for help. I do not know with the others. But actually, when we talk about families, that also involve the seafarers themselves, because they are part of the family.
no, it's an interesting point of approach. You consider the family not separate the two, just like one environment that is in need, and you intervene accordingly.
Okay? So, important but not urgent. Sometimes we have the tendency to be this thinking of saving the world. Of course, that is important to help everyone, no? In a way, no? But it's not very urgent because it can be postponed. Financial literacy, no? Of course, as what Father John mentioned earlier, there are so many families of the seafarers who have problem with finances because of mismanagement. Legal document issues. No? Psychologists would say that we need to unwind at times. But is that urgent? So maybe it's important, but it's not really urgent. And then, urgent but not important. So I think post-counseling, as part of our intervention here, so we have to refer them to experts, no? But not necessarily right on that occasion. And then legal issues with seafarers. No? We heard Father Victor yesterday sharing to us about his experience of the seafarer who was in prison in Bahamas. But he also said that it can wait, no? So he contacted many persons that can. But anyhow, he will share that this afternoon. And this is our problem, no? Not urgent and not important. No? And that's why we put here things we know nothing about their life and struggle. I don't know. That's all.
Last but not least.
No longer fruits, but cash. Urgent and important. Of course, money. We have to get out from the country to look for money. Even though it's risky, some are even getting out of the country through back door. So it's because of money. So we come down. And then pastoral care, that is our work. It's no longer, I think it's very important in our work that we take care of the families, those who are getting out. That's why we have in the family. Not only the seafarers, those who are getting out, but also the families left behind. In our place, we are just blessed because we have one of the wives of our seafarers is very good on financial management. So you have to go parish to parish, giving lectures on how to manage their financial, their money. So, and then provision, food, clothing, etc. Is very important. Urgent and important. Second, urgent but not important, health. If we go out, especially those on contract, They have medical certificate, I think. But there are other cases that you're already outside of the country and you got sick. So that's another problem. But health is for us urgent, but not so important. Of course, recreation. There are centers like, for example, in Cebu, they have basketball court. That's very important. Bilyaran and other sports facilities. Because one time I visited one ship, and then the crew said, "Do you have sports facilities for the Ebola?" So we don't have. Because they really love to, because some are just, you cannot just get out from outside the city. So recreation is very important to them. Important but not urgent, job security. We have to have good connections with other agencies because for the security of the world, we have so many cases that we have to ask help from the OWA, the OAA, and other government agencies for the security. And then the basic skills. It's very important, communication. That's why they have to have laptop, cell phone, etc. And then safety skills. You know what is meant safety skills. And then urgent but not important. No. Urgent, not urgent, and not important. Coming home with several gifts, especially wine. That is not so important. I think they have to save for families, but you have to bring some gifts to their relatives and friends. Devices because of the wine, you know, and then gambling because they have money, and then social pressure. This social pressure, I observe that there are some men that they're already well off, but then still they have to go out because, of course, their wives are so extravagant. They need more. They crave for more, even though they have enough for their family. So some social pressure, keeping up with the, what is this? Joneses. That's all.
Keeping up with the team.
What are the Joneses? What does it mean?
Keeping up with the Jones.
Keeping up with
Joneses.
keeping up with the neighbour. The Jones is a common English surname.
If
Keeping
you
up with the neighbour.
The neighbor.
Yeah.
To show off.
To give something back.
Yes, but in order to show the others that you are successful.
Yes.
That's an expression.
Idiomatic. Yeah.
I was particularly happy because for the first time, differently from the other two painting, the seed card provision is not an important and urgent because before in the other groups this was basically the most important need and therefore their most important job. It's a mean. And this correctly you is mentioned, but for the reason. Okay? In this group they mentioned to stay in touch, not how do you say, to fulfill the parental role, that is important. And there was somewhere else that is was here, communication skills. So, well, what we learn from this exercise, I'm not in the position to say what is wrong or what is right, because you understand what is urgent or important or both. Most of the time depends on the case. But this is useful because it forces us to think about it. What is important, what is the difference? And I see that you got it, more or less. Okay. Clearly, what is urgent? Something that has to be solved as soon as possible. That is matter of health, matters of legal problems, documents. I mean, if someone is abroad and I don't know, loses the documents or expires or something like that, you have to solve. Otherwise, you are stuck somewhere. I mean, when we say urgent, we say something that must be solved in order to go on. Okay? When we are talking about something important, in the tree, I understand that you got it. Important is something that is long-lasting, basically. Okay, that you have to renew along the time. This implies, of course, is important to be for the human balance man, to be in contact with the family, to be supported, to have a space where to unwind and pray and think about yourself in different terms, etc. Pastoral care. I mean, of course, there are all things that are important because they are long-lasting. What is urgent and important? Urgent and important is when the two, in that moment, are together. Okay. Basically, this urgent and important could remain empty, vacant, because what is important is to identify these two in our job. Okay. In consideration of our resources, in consideration of our skills. Okay. Because we are not lawyers. So this means that this financial planning education or the rights, me, myself, for instance, I will put in the important, not urgent. Urgent and important when someone is, I don't know, found a job, is leaving tomorrow, okay, let me give some notions, okay, but now, here and now. But otherwise, you plan, as many of you are doing, you plan, for instance, the meetings, weekly meeting with the lawyer, weekly meeting with the advisors, etc., etc. It's not your job. You're not a lawyer. I don't think that you are doing that. I think that you count on someone, okay, if you want to provide a serious job. But these are important things because you are building up a person that is fully equipped to go and to undergo such a job. It's not for all. So is the equipment is important. Urgent when there are emergencies. Okay. Important and urgent when someone is going to happen tomorrow. There is a case of someone is dying. Of course, it's urgent to go there, assist the family, and because there is a reason. You understand? This is basically common sense. Okay. What you do according to the person that you have in front. What is tricky is this one. This one is the tricky square. Because in that we have to be very careful. Because, let me say, gifts. For many, for instance, going home empty-handed, it's a problem. And maybe they undergone a bad experience. They lost the job, they were tricked, they were cheated, and they are going home like this. Wow. Maybe going home with something in the pocket can be important. Vices. But I'm a smoker. If you provide me with a cigarette, I'm very happy. I mean, I'm not doing any harm to anyone apart myself. And maybe I'm in the port, I don't know where to buy, you help me buy, because for me it's important, my level of nicotine in the body. But just to say, here we have to be very careful. Because sometimes those that we consider not important, not urgent, for many people they are in some moments of their life. Okay? So, this exercise was just to try to think and try to separate and to consider the situation you are in front of or the service that you are putting up, if they are really when they have to be deployed. Okay? Because our resources are scarce, our time is limited, okay? So we have to learn how to separate this.